All right, so let's see, what do we have? The Bissell. But how long have you had this?
A year.
2 years. Is there any particular reason that you bought it? Anything you liked about it?
It was cheap.
It was cheap, right? Well, that's fair enough. Anything that you may not necessarily like about it?
It does put off a stink smell.
A stink smell, okay. We're going to talk about that smell a little bit more in just a minute. But first, I'm going to give you a little bit of a vacuum cleaner history. Okay, the first vacuum cleaner was invented by Hoover in 1908, and it had 4 main parts: an intake, motor, exhaust, and a filter system, some system to keep this stuff in there. Fast forward to 2015, and it still has the same 4 main parts: intake, motor, exhaust, and filter system. So now, you may have known that, about a vacuum cleaner, but now I'm going to tell you something that you may not know about the vacuum cleaner. This vacuum cleaner is broken. It is broken by design. It was broken before you even bought it off the shelf. Did you know that?
The vacuum cleaner, but clean for you.
What was that?
The vacuum cleaner is supposed to clean for you.
It is supposed to clean for you. You're right. Now, it doesn't matter. Like, you have the Bissell. It doesn't matter if it's a Bissell. It doesn't matter if it's a Kirby, an Electrolux. It doesn't matter if you bought the $29.99 Walmart special. They are all dry filtration vacuum systems, traditional vacuum systems. They are broken by design. They have the same 3 strikes against them, and I'm going to show you what those 3 strikes are and why it is broken by design. All right? Okay, so first I'm going to take this apart. Let's see, let's get this off right here. And then you've got another filter down here. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about, is the filters on your vacuum cleaner. Now, a traditional dry filtration system, it's got these type of filters in them. Now, they've gotten a little bit better over the years. You know, do you remember the bag ones? You ever had a vacuum cleaner with a bag in it? You have that big bag and you turn it on, and you ever see the dust come out of it? And it was a pain to mess with because you'd have to take that bag off and stuff went everywhere. So they've gotten a little bit, they're more user-friendly, I guess we could say, because now they all have these canisters, and when you're done with it, what do? You take it outside?
Dump it out.
Yeah, you dump it out. But we let the filter system in it. So here's your filter. You've got filter here, and then you have got a third filter that's down in here. But in order to get to that, I have to take this bottom part out, and that's going to get rid of all that stuff in here. And I don't want to get rid of that yet, because we're going to talk about that in a minute. So your filters, the way this machine is designed, the traditional vacuum with the dry filtration system, you cut it on, the motor's going, and you got this beater bar down here in the bottom, and it beats the carpet, and that loosens up the sand in the grit. And then what it does, the airflow comes through, and it pulls that sand and grit up. It takes it through this filtration system, and it drops that sand and grit in there, and then the air goes back out, and it has to make it out through the exhaust. Now, that air, it has to make it from the intake through the filter and to the exhaust, because if not, if it couldn't make it out to the exhaust, it'd be kind of like a balloon. Think about a balloon. If you just kept putting more and more air into it, what's going to happen to it eventually? It's going to pop. So the same thing would happen here. If that air couldn't pass through this filter system, eventually there'd be so much air in this thing that it's going to pop off the front of your vacuum cleaner and make a big mess. So it has to have those holes. It has to be porous in order for it to even function. The problem with that is that those same holes that it has to have in order to function, some of this stuff that is down in this canister, as soon as you cut this on, that stuff is going to come out with the air. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just the way it's designed. It has to have the holes. And so that small pieces, the particles of dirt and dust that's down in here, it's going to come back out with it. So that's strike 1. That's what we call leakage dirt. Now, strike 2 is, let's see, I'll open this up right here. Strike 2, if you look right here, this is what we call blockage dirt. You see all the stuff that's stuck to your filter right there. You've got some gray fluffy stuff, you've got some hair. There's different things right there. Now, when you cut this on, when everything is brand new, and pulling that dirt up in there, some of that dirt, the tiny dirt and dust, it passes through those holes. But then the big stuff, it gets stuck to the holes, and it clogs up those holes. Within about 10-15 minutes of cutting this machine on, first time you brought it home, brand new from the store, got it off the shelf, within 10 to 15 minutes of using it, about 75% of these holes that you need were clogged up. Because once 75% of those holes are clogged up, only 25% of the air is able to make it up through the machine, drop that sand and dirt off in this canister, and then make it out to the exhaust. So if only 25% of the air can pass through, the machine starts to regulate itself. Because if only 25% got out and you kept putting 100% of the air in there, you're going to get that same thing. Eventually, it's going to have too much air, and what's it going to do? Pop.
Yeah, balloon.
It's going to pop. Okay, so those holes, they get clogged up. Within 10 to 15 minutes, you have dropped down to 25% of cleaning efficiency. And have you ever been vacuuming and you're vacuuming across that piece of string and you vacuum and you vacuum and you vacuum and you vacuum and you just cannot get that piece of string up? Has that ever happened to you?
Pick it up and give up.
Yeah, you pick it up, you put it in your pocket, and then you go on about your way. So if it cannot pick up that piece of string that's laying on top of the carpet, is there any way that it's going to get that sand and dirt up out of your carpet and put it back in this canister where you want it to be? And there's just no way that it can do it. Any other appliance that we have in your house, like your refrigerator, if it only worked 25% of the time, what would you end up doing? You'd have to get another refrigerator. If your car, you get out there to go in your car to get to work, and it's only going to work 25% of the time, what do you have to do? Yeah, you either have to figure out what's wrong with it and fix it, or you have to get a new one, right? So again, there's nothing you can do because in order for this traditional system to work, it has to have those holes in that filter. So that's strike 2, your blockage dirt. Now strike 3 is this stuff. Remember I told you we were going to come back to this stuff? See all that stuff that's down in here in your canister. Now if you look down in the bottom, there's a little bit of sand and grit down in here. You got some Cheerios and some red stuff and straw wrapper, I don't know. But there's a lot of gray fluffy stuff inside here. The gray fluffy stuff, do you have any idea what that is? No. All right. Well, if you were to go to the kitchen and get a piece of bread or a slice of cheese and you bring it in and it's got gray fluffy stuff on it, what would you call it?
Mold.
Mold. That's exactly right. Lysol commercials, they tell us that mold and bacteria, it grows and it thrives in dark, filthy places. And this is probably the darkest, filthiest place in your house. I mean, you use it to pick up dust and dirt. And once you put all this in here, like these filters, it is definitely dark inside there. And then when you get done, most people store this in the closet. And then you've got all that dust and dirt and darkness, perfect breeding grounds for mold and bacteria. So that smell you were talking about, remember the smell that you said it has sometimes when you cut it on, right? And that's exactly what that smell is. Some people will say, oh, well, it smells like wet dog. We don't even have a dog anymore. We got rid of the dog 4 years ago, but when you cut this on, it still smells.
Yeah.
It's not the dog. I mean, you don't even have a dog. I haven't seen one here. So it's not the dog. It's not the pet that's causing that smell. It's that mold and bacteria that's growing inside this machine. So remember, think back to strike 1. What was strike 1?
Leakage dirt.
The leakage dirt. Okay? Nothing you can do about it because the way this thing is designed, it has to have those holes, so it's going to have that leakage dirt. But now, when you cut it on, not only is it putting that dust and dirt back up into the air, but it's also putting all that mold and bacteria back into the air and spreading it throughout your house. And then let's not forget the dust mite. Remember the dust mite that moves around on pieces of dust? Well, they're up in here too. So now you've got like generations upon generations and generations of dust mites in here. So cut it back on. You're trying to clean your house, and instead of cleaning your house, you're actually putting the dust, the dirt, the dust mite feces, and then you've got the mold and bacteria on top of that going throughout your house. It's actually, in the state of Georgia, they regulate when a restaurant can use a traditional dry filtration vacuum system in the restaurant. They cannot use this system within 8 hours of serving or preparing food. And the reason for that, they've done the studies. They know that mold and bacteria is growing inside this system. And as soon as you cut it on, they know there's leakage dirt. So they know that when you cut it on, that stuff is coming out of the vacuum system. And it's going to take at least 8 hours, about 8 hours for that stuff to fully settle. Now, you know, that smell that you had first, that would make me sick in my stomach. If I'm sitting there eating and somebody cuts that on and I smell that smell. But even worse than that is the stuff that it's putting out in the air. If it lands on your food that you're eating or on the surfaces where they're preparing the food, you've got an excellent case for a whole bunch of sick people. You know, the restaurant regulates when they can use this in order to keep us healthy. But think about your home. That's where you're supposed to be safe. And yet we don't regulate when we use this. We cut it on all the time. In just a minute, I'm going to show you how this stuff, where it lands on everything, on your lampshade, on your couch. I'm going to show you where all of that is. But if you think about it, if they're going to regulate when they use it in a restaurant, does it make any sense for us to continue using this and putting all of that harmful stuff back out into the air? No, it doesn't make sense. So those are the 3 strikes. You've got leakage dirt, blockage dirt, and then that mold and bacteria. But now we're going to talk a little bit about the rainbow, because that's your traditional dry filtration system. Over here we've got the rainbow. What's different about the rainbow is we use water as a filter. And that, what's great about that, what sets us apart, that leakage dirt. Remember, strike 1 on here, leakage dirt. Remember we talked about that dirt road and wet dust? What did we say about wet dust?
Can't fly.
It can't fly. So no matter what you get in this rainbow, it's not going to come out. It doesn't have the ability to. So it's going to get in there and it's going to stay in there. So that takes care of strike 1, no leakage dirt. Strike 2 is the stuff that was on your filter. You know, you had all that blockage dirt that gets stuck up in there. When you use water as a filter, you don't have those holes. So there's nothing to get clogged. You're not going to have that blockage dirt. And so that takes care of strike 2. Now, strike 3 is that nasty, the condition that's growing actually inside this type of vacuum system, that mold and bacteria. When you use water as a filter, when you get done cleaning, you're going to take this outside and you're going to dump all that stuff back outside where it needs to be. And you're going to get it out of your home. So that takes care of strike 1, no leakage dirt, no blockage dirt, strike 2, and then it takes care of strike 3. You do not have that mold and bacteria growing inside this machine. So what I'm going to do now, remember we talked a little bit about the difference between airflow and suction, right? And how you need the airflow in order to actually be able to clean. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the rainbow in order to demonstrate to you so that you can see what I'm talking about. And you don't just take my word for it. You know, I want you to actually see the difference between airflow and suction, okay?
All right.
All right.
Come on.